Dear friends, welcome to my channel. I'm Taras Berezovets. Today, I'm going to talk about the new Ukrainian missiles that will be delivered to the Ukrainian Defense Forces very soon. And they have quite a romantic name for this kind of weapon. Ruta, a traditional Ukrainian flower. This was announced today by President Zelensky. Meanwhile, Putin's retreat, a disgraceful escape from Syria, which many analysts compared to Putin's Afghanistan, drawing parallels with what happened earlier, with the rapid and largely thoughtless withdrawal of American troops from Afghanistan. So today, Putin got his second Afghanistan. Meanwhile, the dictator himself is planning to focus entirely on the war against Ukraine. However, this loud slap in the face, as military analysts are already calling it, could shake Russia's positions in the global south. So Putin got his second Afghanistan today. Meanwhile, the dictator himself is planning to focus entirely on the war against Ukraine. But this loud slap in the face, as military analysts are already calling it, could shake Russia's positions in the global south. And that's much worse than just losing one, but still a very important ally in the region. In the east, the reduction in the supply of components for drone production from China to Europe will also significantly hit Ukrainian drone manufacturers as well. This is reported today by Bloomberg. Lukashenko's potato duke announced that dozens of tactical nuclear weapons have already been deployed on the territory of the Republic of Belarus, brought in from Russia. In addition, he promised to deploy Oreshnik missiles at sites where strategic nuclear missiles were previously stationed during the USSR. According to the dictator, there are at least that many sites. The State Duma is preparing a bill that will remove a number of organizations from the terrorist list. And the first one is likely to be the Taliban, which has already been discussed earlier. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk announced that French President Emmanuel Macron will arrive in Warsaw on December 12th. Later, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, will visit. And the main topic of their discussion will be the results of the negotiations between Macron, Trump, and Zelensky in Paris that took place last week. The United States has decided to provide Ukraine with $20 billion from frozen Russian assets. The loan of $20 billion will be granted in the very near months, said U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. The Ukrainian self-propelled artillery hit a target and set a record firing range in real combat. This is reported by Defense Express. It is claimed that the Polish-made Krab self-propelled artillery hit a target at a distance of 70 kilometers using the high-precision guided Vulcan GLR shell. If all this is confirmed, it will definitely be an absolute record. And finally, the Deep State reported about the enemy's advance in the Pokrovsk area of the Donetsk region, as well as that enemy units have entered the territory of the Sumy region. The military administration, however, denied the latest information. So, as all the world's analysts are writing, savoring the details of the disgraceful retreat of the Russian army from Syria, this will be a slap in the face the dictator will not be able to recover from. As Middle East analyst Philip Smith wrote, Putin's military adventure in Syria was meant to demonstrate that Russia is a great power and can extend its influence abroad. Syria's losses are a huge slap in the face to Putin. Putin lost the naval base in Tartus, as well as the air base in Khmeimim, which were crucial for the Russian armed forces in the context of the war against Ukraine. Let me remind you, since Turkey closed its straits, Russia was forced to use the base in Tartus as a key location not only for its Mediterranean fleet, but also for many ships that came here for repairs, as well as to replenish fresh water, ammunition, and food supplies. Now, despite the statements from the representatives of the new Syrian authorities, who supposedly guarantee the inviolability of Russian military facilities, as we know, even before the fall of Assad's regime, Russia withdrew its naval fleet from the base in Tartus, and its planes also left the air base in Khmeimim. The significance of this base is great, as it was under Russian control. With the help of these two bases, primarily the base in Khmeimim, they controlled not only the Middle East, but also the situation in Africa. In particular, the conflicts in Libya, Sudan, the Central African Republic, Mali, and Niger, Now, as stated by one of the experts from the Carnegie Moscow Center for Russian and Eurasian Studies, Dara Masikot, Russia wants to keep its bases, and if it can do that through negotiations, it will. He believes that Russia will offer news in Syria, money, barter, oil, gas, and a limited number of mercenaries. The only question is whether the Syrian coalition, which was bombed by Russian planes, will want to receive anything from it at all. However, the key point is that the Turkish administration, led by President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, will undoubtedly play the main role here, which will largely determine not only the future of Syria. Right now, several scenarios for this country are being considered. While it is in chaos, and the ongoing civil war is being torn apart by its neighbors with some success. The main geopolitical losers in the situation in Syria are undoubtedly Russia and Iran, who backed Bashar Assad's regime and essentially saved it from complete defeat in 2015 by bringing in Iranian Shiites to form a ground force, while Russia used its strategic aviation to strike at the bases of Islamic militants. First of all in Aleppo, which was recaptured, and the Syrian army was, so to speak, fifth wheel on the wagon. It never played a significant role, and its imminent and inevitable flight was primarily due to the fact that Turkey was able to create a sort of showcase on the territories it occupied, as they used to say, a showcase of socialism, meaning a showcase of the Turkish economy. And looking at this, many representatives of Syrian society, as well as the Syrian army, were asking themselves why they should defend the rotten and completely senseless regime of Bashar Assad when they could side with the unnamed winner, in this case, Turkey, which ultimately happened. So, Russia has globally lost not just Syria, not just its key ally in the Middle East, but it has also lost its ability to exert influence, primarily through its aviation and fleet in the Mediterranean region, as well as in Africa. Now Russia is significantly dropping out, losing, so to speak, its own capabilities not just in this region but globally, and this will lead to further problems. This is just the beginning of Russia's problems. Another ally of Russia and China is cutting drone component supplies to the EU and US, impacting Ukrainian manufacturers. Many rely on Chinese parts for affordable weapons. The conflict began when Washington restricted Chinese memory chips. Beijing responded by banning dual-use goods to the US. Many of them, as Bloomberg writes, rely on Chinese parts to produce effective and cheap weapons that play a crucial role in the war. The trade conflict arose because Washington imposed restrictions on the sale of high-capacity memory chips and additional semiconductor equipment by Chinese manufacturers, and in response, Beijing imposed a ban on the sale of dual-use goods to the American military and several high-tech materials to American companies. In particular, the American startup Shield AI Incorporated, one of the key contractors, has been added to China's sanctions list. The Pentagon, this company, is also actively trading in Ukraine. It was previously reported that China has also imposed certain restrictions that also hit Russian drone manufacturers, including Russian drones. Made under Iranian law license, the Shaheds, which use Chinese engines, proved to be extremely ineffective and led to numerous air crashes. Many drones didn't reach their targets, turned back, or lost control due to electronic warfare, falling and crashing. Meanwhile, Zelensky announced that Ukraine is successfully testing a new missile called Ruta. He didn't specify whether it's a ballistic or cruise missile. He made this statement today during the presentation of the National Award to the renowned Ukrainian scientist and designer Boris Payton. Zelensky also announced the successful launch of the Polyanitsa missile and the Drone of Hell missile. He also reported that it was distant. The Neptune cruise missile will soon become a terrible reality for the occupiers. Let me remind you that the flagship of the Black Sea Fleet of the Russian Federation, the missile cruiser Moscow, was sunk with the help of 2 Neptunes. This happened in April 2022. Getting back to the missiles, now about the potato dictator. Lukashenko stated that Russia has brought dozens of tactical nuclear warheads into Belarus. He also plans to use at least 30 sites that have existed since the Soviet era, strategic nuclear missile sites, to deploy the Russian missile Oreshnik. The truth is, Russia still can't show a single product. and Western intelligence hasn't detected any movement or any finished sample of the Oreshnik missile, better known as the Rubezh missile. Also, the potato dictator, who can't even go to the bathroom without Putin's permission, unexpectedly declared that he, Lukashenko, will determine the targets for the Oreshnik missiles, but will press the button together with Putin. So Vitya Iwata said, "Potato man." Well, let's say it's another IPSO that's being carried out. Today, there's a powerful push going on in Russian Telegram channels, which only reinforces my belief that we're not dealing with the actual use of the Oreshnik missile yet. I'll say it again. This is an ongoing formation operation aimed at creating an atmosphere of panic and fear in NATO countries. But in the end, nothing like that happened. While Lukashenko is threatening Europe with terrorist acts, and they've already put out a map showing where this Oreshnik could supposedly reach and how long it would take if it's deployed in Belarus. The State Duma has passed a bill in the first reading that allows for the suspension of the ban on organizations previously declared as terrorist. Where this Oreshnik is supposedly going to reach and how long it will take if it's deployed in the territory of the Republic of Belarus. The State Duma has passed a bill in the first reading that allows for the suspension of the ban on the activities of organizations previously declared as terrorist. And first of all, it will concern the Taliban organization. The Islamist and radical movement Taliban will obviously be excluded first and foremost. In November of this year, during a visit to Afghanistan, the Secretary of the Security Council of Russia, Sergei Shoigu, announced that the government of the Russian Federation has moved to the final stage, as he said, of removing the Taliban from the list of banned organizations. The official name of the movement, Taliban, is the Islamic Emirate. Afghanistan. Journalists also noted that Russian state propaganda media have stopped calling the new Syrian government militants terrorists and Islamists. Now they just call them the new authorities, just like that. From terrorists to permanent partners. And something tells me that these former terrorists could soon become partners of Russia. But I'll say it again, all of this will happen through a middleman in the form of Turkey. And something tells me that these former terrorists could soon become partners of Russia. But, I'll say it again, all of this will happen through a middleman in the form of Turkey. However Kerrigan decides, that's how this partnership will unfold. So far, the forecast for Russia regarding Syria is negative. Meanwhile, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk announced that on December 12th, French President Emmanuel Macron will arrive in Warsaw to discuss the outcomes of the negotiations that took place in Paris with his participation, as well as the participation of President Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, will also visit Warsaw, and in this regard, Donald Tusk made a prediction that peace negotiations regarding Ukraine will begin this winter. Warsaw will start its presidency on January 1st, 2025, and is thus already laying the groundwork for the beginning of such peace initiatives. It's obvious that the air is so thick with the scent of an attempt, I'll say cautiously, an attempt at these negotiations, that now there will be a ton of people wanting to jump in and take the lead. Now, unexpectedly, Poland is trying to take the first night rights from France, which, thanks to the energetic actions of President Macron, has effectively taken the lead in this process. Well, how can we not remember what happened back then? The Normandy Four and the negotiation process in Normandy were initiated by then President François Hollande and then Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel. Right now, we don't see Germany's role. It's not really visible. Olaf Scholz is trying to hustle around, but I remind you he has early elections, the Bundestag in February. It's not a fact that he will outlast them. I mean, as Chancellor, his chances of staying in power aren't looking very high right now. Well, Macron continues to sit in the presidential chair, and since this is already his second and final presidential term, he can afford to do anything, including the most unpopular things. Now, Poland's initiative, I'll say it again, looks like Poland will try, especially considering that Donald Tusk has quite decent, though not as close as Macron's, relations with Donald Trump. Nevertheless, Tusk will try to play the American card. That's pretty obvious. Starting the presidency on January 1st, and then just 3 weeks later, on January 20th, there's Trump's inauguration, which Tusk will likely attend himself, or maybe it will be Andrzej Duda. They might even be figuring out between themselves who will go. but that's not really important. Poland will definitely be represented just like other countries at the highest level. By the way, I'll say it again, I predicted that Zelensky would go to Trump's inauguration. I think this was also discussed during their meeting at the Élysée Palace in Paris last week. I think that Zelensky will again be with Macron and Trump after this inauguration to specifically discuss the timeline for starting peace negotiations. At least there are all the signs that this is starting to be seriously prepared now. And while Trump is just about to take the oath as the 47th President of the United States, the American government has decided to allocate loans to Ukraine amounting to $20 billion, which will be repaid using the income from frozen Russian assets. This initiative has already been announced by U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Trump. The funds obtained from unexpected income from frozen Russian assets will provide Ukraine with crucial financial support. In the fight against unprovoked aggression, a total of $50 billion will be allocated by the G7 countries for Ukraine. This support will be funded by the profits from frozen Russian assets totaling $280 billion. This is all the money of the Bank of Russia. Of these, 210 billion euros, or about $230 billion at the current exchange rate, are in the banks of European Union countries, mostly in Belgium. According to estimates, they could generate up to $5 billion in profit. And we see now, I'll repeat, that this money will go primarily not for military needs. It will be used for financial needs, and also for the recovery of the economy. One nice record, the Polish Krab, using the precision-guided Vulcan GLR shell, hit a target at a record distance of 70 kilometers. 70, just to remind you. About 70 kilometers, just to remind you. The Ukrainian self-propelled artillery Bogdan previously set a record, hitting targets at 43 kilometers. I remember a result was recorded. I wasn't there during those shots. We had a much shorter result, somewhere around 36 or 37 kilometers. But the Bogdan definitely hits at 43. It's 70 kilometers. Indeed, it was not just the Krab that did it, but specifically with this precision-guided Vulcan GLR shell. It's not specified where the shooting took place or what target was hit. Defense Express reports that the 155-meter gun of the self-propelled artillery has Krab, produced by the Polish company Huta Stolowa Wola, which has been produced since 2008. It is based on the South Korean K9 Thunder self-propelled artillery, and the gun in turn is produced by the British self-propelled artillery, AS-90. The crew of the vehicle consists of 5 people. The maximum firing rate is 6 shots per minute. Well, it will be interesting to see the details, of course. And here's some information from Deep State. Deep State reported today that the occupiers are making advances in the areas of populated places in the Donetsk region near Pokrovsk. And they have also entered the territory of the Sumy region near the Kursk region. This information, which was previously spread by Deep State, was later denied by representatives of the Ukrainian military command as well, of the local military administration. They claim that nothing like that actually happened. Well, that's obviously the case. The details of everything that happened will be clarified tomorrow. The enemy also launched another strike in Vorovsky today. Another strike on a civilian facility and again on a hospital. A private hospital in Zaporizhia. They are already reporting 4 dead. Several people are trapped under the rubble, and the rescue work is ongoing. At the moment, among the victims is a 5-year-old girl. Country 404 continues to kill Ukrainians, showing that this war is primarily a genocide war for it. Genocide unleashed against the Ukrainian people. And the saddest thing, as we see with the approach of negotiations, everything will eventually return to business as usual, when many countries around the world will once again try to restore relations with Russia, as if nothing happened, forgetting about the tragedy of the Ukrainian people and the numerous victims that Russia caused during its undeclared, unprovoked war against Ukraine and its people. That's the news we have for today, friends. Thanks for watching this video. Sorry for the little was in my vlogs. I'm going to get back to the usual rhythm of our news now. Take care of yourselves. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like, write, and comment on the broadcast. Don't forget to recommend the video to your friends and acquaintances. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the armed forces of Ukraine, glory to the Ukrainian Special Forces, glory to the Ukrainian Territorial Defense Forces. You are with Major of the Ukrainian Army Taras Berezovets. Friends, see you next time. Bye-bye.